So I watched the first 3 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. But before I did that, I did spend a significant amount of time rewatching the first 3 seasons of the original Netflix series because I barely remember much about it. All I know is that I like Daredevil and Matt Murdock, but we'll get to that later in this discussion. So I basically went into it blind. It was like watching it for the first time all over again. All new reactions, whole new experience. It was enjoyable. So let's talk about the opening acts of a couple of these episodes. Opening scene for the first episode did not draw me in the way that I was expecting, especially after coming off of the first 3 seasons, and those openings they were fire AF. I get it's supposed to be a continuation or whatever, but it started off really boring. It didn't give me anything to be excited about. It started off with basically a family reunion at Josie's bar with meaningless conversations between characters we don't know. And I was sort of expecting to see at least a conversation between the 3 main characters, Karen, Foggy, and Matt. We didn't get that. The look and feel of the episode felt like they were trying to make a movie or something, like a cinematic sort of thing. It might have something to do with them using a digital camera, which I am not a huge fan of. I dislike digital cameras. It depends, man, but for the most part, I'm just not rocking with it. The sheer disappointment I got when they were at the bar and Matt was listening to Foggy's phone call. I don't know whose idea it was, but they had a freaking spotlight on this guy's ear. Are they serious? How dumb do you think the audience is? It's like they were trying to clue us in on the fact or highlighting the fact that Matt has heightened senses, as if we didn't already know this. It was corny and it was cringy AF. Completely unnecessary. Maybe they're anticipating new viewers for this show. I don't know why new viewers would watch the show. I feel like they wouldn't even be aware of this for the most part if they weren't previously aware of the fact that there was a previous show of Daredevil. The next thing you know, they're all running outside, and then Foggy gets silenced. Not with a silencer, but a different type of hand weapon. I don't know what it's called. I don't carry these things yet. The show made Matt, or well, at least I thought the show made Matt a murderer in less than 20 minutes. I wasn't even mad. I was just confused about all of this. First, Foggy is forever gone, and Matt has now done the one thing he spent years avoiding and believed was the wrong thing. And you guys did this in less than 20 minutes. And the person who sent Foggy on his way was Bullseye, aka Kingpin's lapdog from season 3 of the original. When Matt politely tossed Bullseye off of the roof, I thought he was a goner for good. But nope, he came straight back to life. The opening scene for the second episode of Born Again was this guy walking down the subway on the phone with his wife. He sees this dude getting assaulted by 2 other guys. He jumps in to help out instead of being a silent bystander like most people in New York. Which even I feel like most people in general would have done. I know I would have. I would have just kept walking. And that's basically how they started off the second episode of Born Again. Matt takes on a new client in the second episode, which happens to be the same civilian who was technically doing what most people would claim to be the right thing to do. If you are enjoying this podcast episode so far, please make sure you leave a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and follow the podcast depending on your listening platform. And also, you can download episodes of the podcast for offline listening if you hit the download button on those platforms. It's not just helpful for me, but it's helpful for you so that you can easily come back to the episode if you don't finish it or if you are traveling and want to listen to it offline. Well, that sounded really messy. Anyway, we're going to go back to the show. Matt figures out that these cops that his client was beating up were corrupt. Yeah, these cops are corrupt. Shocker. I feel like previous seasons of Daredevil mostly followed a bunch of corrupt cops or agents or whatever. So we're just back to kind of the same thing. When Matt got into a fight with the cops in the rescuee's apartment, I wasn't sure if he was actually going to fight back because he did say that he would be taking a step back from the whole vigilante part of his life after Foggy got Swiss cheesed. Now, of course, we all knew that wasn't going to be the case because that would defeat the whole purpose of bringing the show back. Maybe the show will dive more into Matt's relationship if they are choosing to slowly remove focus from the vigilante thing for a little while, but they're not going to do it completely. Let's be for real here. So if they focus more on his relationship with the therapist lady, that can be interesting. I mean, she's a temporary, just like all his other relationships. But I also knew that he wasn't just gonna sit there and take the donkey kicking that he was getting. So I was curious of how he was going to approach this because he wasn't wearing the Daredevil costume, and these cops were cops, air quote. But he went on and kicked their donkeys anyway. And they were probably really shocked because he's a blind guy, and they were probably not expecting him to fight back. But little did they know. Yeah, I thought he ended their lives too because there was blood everywhere. But honestly, their heads hit the ground so hard, I thought that they were finished. Like, you don't hit your head that hard and not be done. Unless you're Bullseye, as we've previously stated, of course. When this new team went to their client's house, and I'll talk about the new team later because I have my thoughts on this new team. I have a lot of thoughts. When this new team of Matt Murdock's law firm went into their new client's house to talk to his wife or whatever, they found a vigilante suit, which means that Matt's new client is also running around in the night. Turns out this guy is the vigilante known as White Tiger, which happens to be a vigilante I'm unfamiliar with since I've never read the comic books. I don't even know the definition of the word book, let alone how to spell it. If anybody knows anything about this character, please let me know in the comments. As for Kingpin, because I did mention him in a previous podcast episode. It might have been the first one when I was talking about Daredevil Born Again coming out this year. But he's the mayor of New York now. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that, because I thought that Kingpin's his character could be interesting with this whole mayor arc. I'm curious to see how this mayor thing will turn out and if he really is doing this for the reasons he claims, but I think we all know that he's not. This is going to be fun. His wife, on the other hand, seems like she's been enjoying her time while he was locked up and they wouldn't let him out. She had a lot of time to manage the business on her own, and she had a lot of time to cheat on him. So maybe we'll eventually see their relationship take a turn and possibly a shift in power dynamics between both of them, which kind of sucks because the relationship was, I don't want to say, it was romantic, but it was psychotic. I mean, for psychotic people in the original show. But she was holding him down. She was ride or die, loyal to the core. And seeing the show, or who the showrunners, director, the writers, whatever the F, change that whole situation is kind of, it doesn't do the characters justice, especially when you've seen how close they were and how serious it was for the both of them. Like, I did notice in season 3, though, she did bring up the fact that, and I'm talking about season 3 of the original because obviously there's no season 3 of Born Again, and for all we know, there probably might not ever be. But for the original season 3, we did get a glimpse of her saying to him, hey, I just want to be more involved in the business. So I'm not going to say it's completely unreasonable for them to make this shift in this new show. But for them to destroy their relationship is insane. It is kind of wild because they decided to see a marriage counselor. And their therapist happens to be Matt's new temporary love interest, which is just, first of all, Kingpin, they're for some reason his character feels a lot more needy in their relationship, which is not how it always worked. Those two were always well balanced, and now it feels like she's out here sort of like, I'm the one with all, like, holding all the cards, and it just doesn't feel natural or right. They could at least be king and queen pin, but it feels like she's trying to separate herself from Kingpin, which again doesn't make sense given the relationship history. Now, second, what are the odds that he is seeing Matt's temporary lover as a therapist? Of all the therapists in New York, how is it that he manages to link up with Matt's therapist lover? It's either a coincidence or he did it on purpose. And knowing Kingpin, he always has a plan. Even when I was watching the original show, I knew immediately when he got shanked in that prison that it was all part of his plan. I just didn't understand how and how the plan and the pieces were going to fall together. There's something here. There's no way this dude is all good intentions. He wants his power back. I mean, he sort of showed his hand a little bit when he called out Spider-Man and Daredevil and a few other MCU characters, which is sort of problematic and questionable because I did not want them to combine Daredevil with the rest of the mess of the MCU. The MCU is such a mess. You didn't need to do this. And it's funny because a lot of the heroes that he mentioned are all New Yorkers, because isn't Spider-Man in Queens? Daredevil is in Hell's Kitchen. Well, not anymore as of this new show. And I forgot who else he mentioned, but he's made it very clear that he's trying to dismantle the vigilante era. And he might even pass a law saying no more vigilantes. If we see vigilantes, we will, how do I say this? Not violently. Give me a second. I'm just going to, we will end you. We will end you. But if you disagree with my observation or thoughts or whatever it is of what I'm thinking about this Kingpin storyline, just let me know what you think of this storyline. Where do you think it's going to go? Like, there's just a lot here. And I feel like Disney/Marvel is really good at missed opportunities. So again, don't get your hopes up. Now, I want to talk about this next character that seems to be missing. The very, very important character, besides Foggy, of course. Karen was here and she wasn't here. And I'm disappointed. She's in San Francisco now. I think taking Matt's friends away defeats the entire purpose. Don't bring the show back if you're not going to bring the main group back. I do not give a damn about these new characters that you showed us. And clearly neither do the writers, right? Because they didn't even give these new characters any screen time or dialogue. They're just side characters. They're side characters with no lines, basically. They are helpful sometimes, but barely. They're not as present as Foggy and Karen were in the original show. These characters feel more like they're just there so Matt can have people there. It just feels off, and I don't like it, especially the lack of connection that he has with these new characters versus the connection that he had with his actual friends. His friends are the ones that kept him grounded, by the way, and kept him sane and from doing things that he probably might regret doing. And not having those moral compasses around and being surrounded by people that no one is familiar with, it takes away the whole dynamic. Karen and Foggy cannot be replaced. And what happened to Marcy? What happened to Marcy? They didn't even bring that up, by the way. They started the first episode. Not like, oh, there's just so much I want to say. It's just like, what the? I mean, I knew not to get my hopes up initially. I've said it in so many podcast episodes. But Foggy gets Swiss cheese, and they don't think it's important to show us his family's reaction to that, the funeral either, the Marcy's reaction. We don't even know if he's still with Marcy, although by the end of season 3 of the original, they seemed like they were basically ready to have kids. So the fact that she wasn't even mentioned or seen or acknowledged in any way, shape, or form in these first few episodes, especially the first one, right? It really makes me think, like, where are their heads at with this show? You know what? I know where their head's at. It's far up there. Oh, what is that? It also doesn't make sense as to why Foggy wouldn't tell Matt about the client that is hiding up in his house and being hunted, especially when Matt could have definitely helped since he is Daredevil. Like, Foggy didn't even have to. Foggy said he didn't want to give Matt an excuse to be a vigilante. But Matt was already a vigilante. So that doesn't even make any sense. It's only after Foggy got Swiss cheese is when Matt decided to put the mask away. Foggy deserves better. A lot better. And a lot more screen time than what we got of Foggy. I'm really hoping that... I mean, I don't know. Because this is crazy. This is crazy, dog. I want to talk about the Punisher for literally half a second. We haven't seen him, but we keep seeing the logo. So maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't be back. But I don't understand why he would be connected to the corrupt police officers anyway. Because that doesn't really make any sense either. I don't know. And if anybody has any ideas or theories or whatever, let me know. Because I'm legitimately lost here. And I also want to hear your thoughts about the whole Foggy situation. It's springtime. I can hear the birds chirping outside. I don't know if you can hear it. I don't want to hear it. Anyway, the ending of the 3rd episode was so predictable. It was so predictable. I mean, of course the White Tiger is going to have a hole in his head, right? First of all, he's stupid because you were just exposed as being the White Tiger. And then right after your trial, you think it's a good idea to go ahead and put on your pajamas. Come on, dude. Now, the real question is, who done it? Because there are a lot of culprits here. We've got, obviously, number one, the corrupt cops. I mean, the vest had the whole Punisher logo on it. I think it's the Punisher logo. It could be pirates. I don't freaking know. At this point, Disney is known for doing whatever they want these days. Pirates in New York? Sure, why not? For real, though, if in all seriousness, it could be... I was going to say it could be the Punisher, but that's not the case because we all are familiar with his MO and he's not going to do this. So that leaves number 2 being a Kingpin or his wife. And I put those 2 as number 2 instead of 2 and 3 because they are a team for now. And so, yeah, I don't know. It could be somebody pretending to be one of the corrupt cops and not actually part of that whole corrupt cop gang. I don't know. It could literally be anyone. It's definitely not Bullseye. That's for sure. Or is it? I do want to go back to Bullseye for a second because it makes no sense as to why he would attack Foggy in the first place, now that I think about it, unless he was hired by the corrupt cops. But that's a lot. That's a lot to even think about. I don't even want to extend that far. But I will say this as my possible theory. Foggy's new client that he didn't tell Matt about robbed the warehouse, I think, right? So what if that warehouse somehow is connected to the corrupt officers? It would make sense as to why the corrupt cops would hire somebody like Bullseye because, well, they don't want people to know that they're dirty cops. So they're going to hire somebody to do the dirty work for them. But that's a whole another thing. And I could be completely wrong, but other than that, there would be no other reason, and it would make absolutely no sense for why Bullseye would attack Foggy. I want to move on with some specific production or creative choices. made by the new group of people who decided to create this unnecessary series. The camera movements that they were doing during the fight scene of episode 1, literally before Foggy's demise, for me personally, it was just too much. There was CGI involved, right, with the fog. I think they might have used CGI for the fight scene too, which is a big problem for me. I don't even know where to start because I don't know much. I'm just talking about what I noticed with my eyes. The show doesn't feel like the way the old ones did either. Now that the main characters are basically gone and they're using digital cameras, the cinematography is different. I mean, there's a lot of things that are different here that definitely doesn't necessarily keep the same feel. It keeps the same intensity and whatnot, but the feel of the show in terms of the visually, it's not equal. It's not equal. They're definitely aiming for this more cinematic thing, and I don't get it, and I don't like it. Back to the CGI smoke. Why? The shots of the show from episode 1 to 3, they do a lot of basic shots, not a lot of close-ups, a lot of wide angles. They're just things that just seem basic. I don't know, maybe they got a director in training. I'm being too harsh. The lighting on the rooftop of episode 1 was too dark. And as for the close-ups, or the lack thereof, along with the dark lighting, I didn't see Matt's reaction to Foggy's heart stopping. Like, obviously he was crying, but I didn't feel it, and the camera was too far away, basically. And it really didn't capture the emotion the way that I'm sure they were expecting to capture the emotion, which sucks because the audience should be able to feel that because of the amount of time they spent with Foggy over the years previously. So the fact that I didn't feel anything because of the lack of lighting, direction, and close-up, it kind of sucked, and it took a lot out of Foggy's demise. The blood, it didn't look, I don't know, I get it. The streaming service era is a cheap era, which means they're not going to spend money on budget, which ultimately leads to a mediocre show. Also, the writing was... But yeah, it leads to mediocre shows. I don't like the streaming era. I never liked the streaming era. Let's bring film cameras back and real fake blood, not CGI blood. Overall, my final thoughts, especially compared to the original, this one was, I mean, we're only 3 episodes in, but 3 episodes is a significant amount to understand and know how you feel about something. Just like when you're watching a movie, within the first 30 minutes, you should know whether or not you're going to like it or not. So it's the same way with me with TV shows. By the 3rd episode, I know, This series is definitely watchable. Daredevil Born Again is watchable. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just all right. It's nothing to rave about. It's nowhere near close to the original, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I'll keep watching it, but I'm gonna try to enjoy myself while watching it, and I'm gonna try not to focus too much on the obvious pitfalls of the series. My favorite characters in the original series were Foggy, Karen, Claire, and the Punisher. So we've got none of those people anymore. So this should be interesting. And don't get me wrong, I liked Matt, but as I was rewatching it, I realized, I mean, I guess I forgot how problematic he was with his personal relationships with his friends and whatnot. He was definitely he was a headache to deal with, but they were good friends and they stuck around, and I respect that. Because I wouldn't. That's crazy. That's crazy work. But in all seriousness, Matt was a bit... He came off as an a-hole, right? But he was really good at being Daredevil, and that's what I enjoyed, and that's what I liked so much, which is why I get so excited every time I see Matt in anything. As for Claire, I'm hoping she comes back. Maybe she won't, because she disappeared. She was barely in the original, to be fair. But I really liked Claire. But if you want to add something to the discussion of this Daredevil Born Again discussion episode of the podcast, be sure to do that. I want to know your thoughts and your opinions and predictions as well in the comments. Maybe you guys can discuss it with each other. I do plan on finishing the season, and I'll probably do a discussion when the season is over. So if you do want to stay tuned for that, be sure to turn on notifications so that you don't miss it when the season is over. That'll be it for this episode. Whether you liked it or not, please be sure to let me know in the comments so that I can scold you later. And you'll hear me the next one, if you listen to it.